Welcome back to Left Anchor. I'm Lexi the Greek.
And I'm Ryan Cooper. So, here we are.
In year 3 of the Trump administration.
This will be a little bit of a, taking stock episode, I suppose. We've done so many just kind of covering the news, talking about this and that, trying to draw out the threads of various things that are happening. And I think it's time to have a little bit more of a holistic approach to what's going on.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because I think we're in a totally new situation. I think we're in a place where no American really has lived under a government like this before, and we don't know where it's going. It's totally unclear, and the usual rules don't apply anymore, I think. And so I think it's appropriate to take stock.
Ooh, we said it at the same time. That's what do kids do when that happens? They do like
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Yeah.
See, this is what we need in this age, these dark times. We need to have synchronicity and psychic bonds to face the dark forces. So yeah, everyone should just, pull up a chair, lay on the sofa, like in a therapy session. I don't know, grab a beer, whatever makes you comfortable to take a deep breath with us, because we're gonna just see where it goes.
And I think the focus of news we'll talk about at the start, it just has to be Elon Musk, which is I'll confess not something that I anticipated would be the case. I thought he would have a sort of marginal role of some description. He would be in charge of some kind of like budgetary blue ribbon commission, the way that like Joe Biden had his Supreme Court commission, to where he just put a bunch of graybeards on to be like, well, make sure that you don't come up with anything important,
because to be clear, Doge, which is his stupid, teen boy play on words for the crypto thing, but it stands for Department of Government Efficiency, is not a real, just to be very clear for anyone who's not aware, it's not a real department or agency. The president can't just, for those that don't know, agencies are creatures of Congress. They have to be created by Congress. The president cannot just make up a new one. And so it's just, this is why, Ryan, I'm assuming you were thinking this would be kind of not very meaningful, just a kind of thing to occupy lapdog Musk or something.
No, exactly. And even before the election happened, I thought that Trump would just sort of slot Elon over like a sort of classic campaign donor type thing, where you give him an ambassadorship or something like that. But this is something wholly unprecedented in American history, I think, where basically Elon is running the government. I saw a guy from Wired say that in his opinion, of the opinion of the reporters at Wired, that Elon Musk is the head of government and Donald Trump is the head of state. Like the King of England is the head of state, and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
Lovely. We have a beautiful figurehead. Who could be more royal than Donald Trump? Just a perfect symbol of virtue and stateliness, just the best diplomat ever. And Musk, of course, the best manager of affairs for the common good, as it were. And we say this because literally the keys to the kingdom have been given, in the sense that he is taking over computers, going into offices, having his goons, none of whom were elected, obviously, demanding things of people, getting them put on administrative leave. We can get into it, but quite functionally taking things over.
Yeah. So here's an example from a CNN article. Quote, 2 top security officials at the U.S. Agency for International Development were put on administrative leave Saturday night after attempting to refuse officials from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency access systems at the agency, even after Doge personnel threatened to call law enforcement, multiple sources familiar told CNN. According to sources, personnel from the Musk-created office physically tried to access the USAID headquarters in Washington, D.C., and were stopped. The Doge personnel demanded to be let in and threatened to call U.S. Marshals to be allowed access, 2 of the sources said. The Doge personnel wanted to gain access to USAID security systems and personnel files, 3 sources said. 2 of those sources also said that the Doge personnel wanted access to classified information, which only those with security clearances and a specific need to know are able to access. And this is, just one of the examples, and another story, says that, like, I think as part of the USAID thing that, Musk himself wanted, access to an SCIF facility.
That's a SCIF, right? Like a secret.
A
right?
SCIF, secured compartmented information for. It's maybe I'm like doing an ATM machine type of thing, but like this is a room in which the very most classified type of information that the U.S. government possesses is held in.
Right. For example, when people testify before Congress, but there's something they cannot say even before Congress, they say, "I can tell you that in a SCIF, Senator." Right. Like,
yeah, exactly. And Musk, who, was just a few months ago reported as having had a private conversation with Vladimir Putin and have lied about it to federal officials, wants access to something like this. That's just one example. Another one is that Musk goons are now, maybe apparently they do have access to the entire Treasury Department payment system and all of the data associated with that. And this is like the bloodstream of the fucking federal government. I mean, it's like it's
like the ability to see where payments are going, to stop payments, to control payments. They have access to employees, like private information, to social security numbers. They might have access to the public's private information. I don't know. Right.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it's not clear yet exactly what happened, but we're talking about potentially $6 trillion in annual, payments going out, and highly sensitive information that are associated with all of that stuff. I mean, of course, to be able to make payments, you have to know people's bank account information, in many cases, their social security numbers and all. I mean, it's just like the crown jewels of the federal government, and Elon Musk's fucking goons are in there.
And not only that, there are reports of Musk himself installing hardware in these offices. Who knows what he's bringing in order to connect with the information that's there and the systems that are there, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The reports, again,
we don't know.
Not yeah. Much of this is confirmed. I mean, we're reading off of CNN and stuff, but reportedly that Musk is installing his own servers to download God knows what of all of the federal database for everyone's everything, all of your, IRS, your tax returns and your most private information that the federal government possesses. And this guy, who is working for a department that is not a real department, is not authorized by Congress, and
which is especially scary when Trump, in his flurry of executive orders, almost comically, not just rattled off so many that it was insane, but so many that were clearly outside the scope of executive power, so many clearly unconstitutional things. But suddenly, when you're coupling all these assertions of wild power that you don't have, when you're coupling that with actual access to, the purse that Congress is supposed to control, and that like agencies that are duly empowered by Congress and supposed to be administered constitutionally are in charge. Now it's a real power grab to not just say you want to do unconstitutional things, but to actually effectuate those plans. Under the cover of anti-DEI, under anti-trans logic, under xenophobic logic. Like, they have all these justifications, emergency situations, they're invoking emergencies with executive orders, the debt ceiling's coming up. Like, there's going to be like a mishmash of all kinds of claims, but like what's going on behind the scenes is really dangerous and unclear, because they could distract with a whole bunch of things they're saying while they're doing this, right?
No, exactly. And I suppose there's sort of two levels to this. Number one, you're sort of fiddling with the budgetary authorities of Congress without any authorization, to say that DEI or whatever. And so like that, our executive order about DEI allows us to change the budgetary authority of particular agencies. But then secondly, you just have like a wholesale grab of Congress's appropriation authority. This is just like basic constitutional law, schoolhouse rock shit. Congress,
James Madison, Federalist Paper stuff, right?
Yeah, Congress appropriates the money and the president spends it. The president can't just. This is like fucking Charles the First. This is what touched off the English Civil War. And what was it, 1642, right? That the king wanted the ability to spend without having to call on Parliament. Very different circumstance back in those days, but fundamentally same type of situation in that you had a king that was like, I don't want any checks on my power. I want to be able to spend the money whenever I want. I want to be able to spend it on whatever I want, and fuck you. And, this was a major reason why the U.S. Constitution was set up how it was in the first place.
Article 2 is very clear that there's a duty that the president, the take care clause, that faithfully execute the laws.
Yeah.
And the only types of legislation where there's discretion for the president to spend differently is if the legislation itself says at the discretion of the president, he may spend or she may spend less. But like, that's a very narrow kind of thing, right? But you can't do more, you can't not do it, you can, and that's only in those certain circumstances. But like, and that's leaving aside all of the other shenanigans that might have to do with corruption that Musk is doing in terms of his own corporate and personal wealth interests. Who knows what other interests are being served with whatever's going on, right? So there's like the constitutional crisis and the abrogation of constitutional power, the lack of transparency and the power grab by an unelected, and a number of unelected people under Musk, and then God knows what government money and government power is doing in service of his ends, and who knows what those ends are.
It's
thank God we have a great opposition party.
Yeah,
they're on top of it. Don't worry, folks. The Democratic leaders are tweeting like crazy.
Yeah, except they aren't, though. That's
not even that. They're not even doing that. I was trying to make a joke that they're just using like social media, but they're not even doing that. Only like AOC is, maybe Bernie. I don't know.
Yeah, even Bernie had a couple of posts talking about bipartisanship on Blue Sky. That was like trying to sort of set themselves up for. It's like if George W. Bush was talking about something and you're like, well, if George W. Bush is talking about that, like it's just a total failure to reckon with, the situation that is in hand. And I think that's more or less replicated across the media and the political class. Like nobody can.
It's the Yeats poem, right? The second coming, turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. And then, it's just like,
yeah, we've mentioned that before. I've been recently reading a book.
Burns, right?
No.
Different one. You read lots of books. I was trying to guess which book.
I read many books, like one book per year at least.
It's not true, folks.
No. Pacific Crucible, War at Sea in the Pacific, 1941 to 1942. You know, I'm in my dad era. We have to read about naval battles. But a section in this book talks about how when the Pearl Harbor attack happened, that just big chunks of people couldn't believe that it was happening. That was like, oh, it's another drill, even when it was like clearly very much not another drill.
This is not a drill, folks. Yep.
Yeah. And you just like a whole class of people who have been raised in many cases, you know, for like 60 years on this notion of American exceptionalism and the rules of politics being what they are, basically facing what I would say is, you know, a kind of classic, you know, third world, global South oligarch bust out coup attempt of some description. You know, very straightforward if you think about it in that context. And people are they're just like it doesn't compute to them.
It's true.
They don't know. They don't actually believe. I think that what it reveals is that people don't actually believe in the virtue, the civic virtues, the morality of the American constitutional order. You know, because if they did, they would recognize when someone was tearing it up. So it's this kind of combination of a blinkered Philistine pig ignorance about what's happening, and also an unwillingness to reckon with that America is just another country, that we can have tin pot dictatorship happen here. It can happen. It is happening now. And not
only that, there's been inoculation against feeling like there's ever just cause for going after your fellow elites, right? Once you're in that echelon of power, sure, you talk a tough game maybe, but you don't really go after each other, especially when you've lost the election. Okay, the other side won. All right, well, I know my role now until the next election, right? But they don't actually believe that there's a threat to anything, especially not themselves.
Yeah, and it's very one-sided, of course. You know, like Al Gore had the presidency stolen from him, I would think. You know, like you look at the balance of evidence, George W. Bush stole the presidential election of 2000, and yet Al Gore, he did the magnanimous thing, the thing that you do in the context of a political system which is wholly fair and, you know, reasonable. Where it's like, okay, I lost fair and square. And so my duty is to admit to that and shake hands with the victor. And, you know, we all go on our merry way, and I'll make some documentaries. But if you don't live in that type of situation, to behave in that fashion is stupid. You're just helping the criminals. And now we're at the reductio ad absurdum of that type of behavior, where instead of like just barely stealing the presidential election by a few hundred votes in Florida, we have an unelected foreign billionaire of fucking white South African, the worst kind of people there are, the worst race. I'm not racist except against white South Africans. A well-earned, you know, come at me in the comments if you want.
You know, and he's a very sensitive snowflake too, right? The richest man in the world, who will probably be the first trillionaire or whatever, because when he does a very clear Nazi salute, with a face that can only be, you know, described as joyfully angry and righteous in doing the Nazi salute, you know, he's defended, you know, at all costs, because it's ableist to say that he was doing that, even though he then soon thereafter zoomed in to the far right party in Germany at a rally and very clearly was supporting their
and he did.
So
Yeah, talking about how there's no need to be ashamed of German history.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to be ashamed about being a German. This is something that white. Well,
it's weird. Why would a white South African be talking about German history? It seems strange. What's the connection there? I don't get it. No, but if it wasn't so upsetting, it would be just endlessly comic. But it's, first is tragedy, then it's farce, right? It's like the lunatics are running the asylum now, and they're also the richest and powerful people. So it's like, so that's right. And we haven't even talked about the crazy tariffs. That we're not even talking about crazy policy yet.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the
shock doctrine chaos approach, or what?
It's kind of interesting to try to figure out like who's in charge of what. It seems that Elon Musk is in charge of all this budgetary shit. That it's his goons going into all the government agencies and telling them that USAID. He said it's a criminal organization. USAID is a criminal organization, and the whole thing is going to be shut down. I mean, this is a government department. It's been affiliated with like some troubling things, but like that's how the U.S. constitutional system works. Congress sets it up, it funds it, and the money goes out. But this tariff thing, that seems to be more or less entirely Trump. And so yesterday, on Saturday, he imposed a 25% tariff on goods and services from Canada and Mexico, 10% tariffs on energy, notably because we get a ton of oil and gas from Canada in particular. It's anybody's guess. I don't know that
we get most of our foreign oil from Canada, by the way, and it's not even close.
Yeah, not even close. Right, because it's right there, that there's like 100,000 miles of pipelines that go back and forth across the border and whatnot. We pump a ton of oil, but of course, it's a global marketplace. And so a lot of our oil that's drilled in the United States is exported.
Don't worry. There's retaliatory tariffs coming our way as well for that.
Oh, yes. No, so Canada has imposed retaliatory tariffs. As far as I can tell at this point, Mexico has not announced anything specific, but it will definitely impose.
I mean, the president had a whole speech about they have a plan B if this happens. So like it's in the works, right? Yeah.
They're not going to take this lying down, and it's insane on many ways. The Mexican and Canadian approach, from what I've been reading, seems to be to target red states specifically. So like, and
maybe swing states also, possibly.
Yeah. Politically vulnerable states. Canada is the largest trading partner for all of the swing states in the North, the Midwest and the Northeast, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, especially Michigan and Wisconsin. They get a ton of electricity from Canada through power purchase agreements, and tons of oil and gas as well. Justin Trudeau gave, I thought, like a very good speech where he was just like, what the fuck, man? Like, what? We didn't do anything. What the fuck are you talking about?
I feel like it's like if you have your neighbors over at your house and your kid like is drunk and takes like a weapon out and is like pointing it at everyone, and your neighbor's like, whoa there, settle down. No need for violence. Like, it's just, this isn't only going to end badly for everyone. I mean, I don't know if people realize that, our friend of the pod, Manu Sadi, I was corresponding with him earlier today, and he was like, does Trump realize that for cars, for example,
Yep.
parts might go back and forth over the border like 6, 7, 8 times before, in the process of making the car. And so each crossing is going to get, the tariff on it. And it's just, it's going to put to a grinding halt a lot of production.
Yeah. I saw an estimate that this is going to add $3,000 to the cost of every car, finished in the United States.
But don't forget, it's also going to make CEOs, what they love? They love uncertainty because, right? But seriously, businesses want to be able to predict what supply is necessary, what the costs are going to be.
Yeah.
And so when you have Trump, like when a journalist asks him a question, changes his mind and like jacks up the tariff amount, you know what I mean? Like that's the other element here. It's not just what he's already done. It's trying to predict what he's going to do based on how crazy he's already been.
Yeah. And I think, the broader context of the whole tariff thing is that Trump himself agreed that he wasn't going to do that. That was the whole USMCA renegotiation of the NAFTA trade agreement that he did back in his first term. And that is why there are all of these businesses that have such elaborate supply relationships that go back and forth across the border over and over again, because it has been taken for granted that the U.S. won't just unilaterally just renege on all of that stuff. And
it's pretty awkward for Trump because Biden was his successor. And so things that during the Biden administration existed as carryovers from Trump policy-wise, Trump, because he's a narcissist and crazy, has to pretend never happened. And so he's not like, not that he would feel particularly consistent anyway, but like he needs to kind of disown his own policies because of his, I'm undoing all the bad things Biden did. And the world was terrible because of Biden, right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I mean, Biden, you could maybe criticize him for this a little bit, but he sort of took Trump's approach and built on it in a much more logical fashion to be like, I mean, it is the case that the United States trade deficit is unsustainable, that, we have been for like 30 years, the consumer of last resort for the country, for the world. And we've just been gulping down the surpluses from Europe and China for the most part. And it's not a healthy way to set the economy up because, while you get lower prices at Walmart as a result, you just core out big old, belts of manufacturing capacity in places like Pennsylvania, where I live right now. But, there's a smart way to do that and there's a stupid way to do that. And what Trump's doing is nonsensical, because like what hit the United States in late 2000s with permanent normal trade relations with China in 2000 and NAFTA, it was a relationship with China and secondarily Mexico, but Canada, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like they didn't do anything. It's not like Canada has sweatshops where they're making like blue jeans for Banana Republic or whatever the fuck. Like they're shipping us oil and timber and, some minerals and stuff like that. That it's totally unrelated. And China, in Trump's tariffs, by the way, which I didn't mention before, they're only getting a 10% tariff. So it's like, right. What are you even doing here? Like it's completely nonsensical. And it just
what was the bill right before the handover to the Trump administration happened, where China was going to get hit hard on something and then Musk got involved and then it was taken out? Remember that?
Oh yes. In the last budgetary, the continuing resolution to fund the government through, I believe, March, there were a number of controls on investment in China. And they were taken out. Musk blew the deal up, and when it was renegotiated, there were some controls on investment in China that had been taken out. And it's, of course, obvious that Tesla has a major factory in China, and their biggest market to this day is in China. And yeah, hard not to draw that conclusion as well. But I do think that the tariffs, like, I haven't seen Elon Musk, sort of promoting this idea. He's all about, like, he was just posting today about, we're cutting illegal payments to this like Lutheran charity in South Dakota that like funds this like senior like wellness centers and nursing homes and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that he just found this thing, and it very much smacks of how he ruined Twitter. You barge in and you have your handful of like 21-year-old engineers like run through the budget, and you say, oh, that doesn't sound very good, and you just like cut it out. And
without any real understanding of how things work.
Yeah. And doing that in Twitter is one thing. Doing it in the federal government, which is like 3 orders of magnitude bigger than Twitter is another. And
we're supposed to take a breath, Ryan. We have to take a breath now.
Yeah. That's the end of the preview, folks. As usual, we like to mention that this podcast is sponsored by the American Prospect Magazine. So if you want to listen to the whole thing, you can subscribe at $5 a month if you want that, plus a free subscription to the website, plus the opportunity for a steeply discounted print subscription. You can do that if you so wish at $10 a month. And otherwise, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.